I was coaching a women's basketball team and started to feel like a stirring in my heart that I was supposed to be doing something else. And I wasn't sure what that was, but I knew I needed to pray about it. And just over time, the Lord, I feel like, said to me, there's more, that there are more women you can help. There are more women than your team that you can help. And so I just kept praying about that, and you can help me with the date. It was April 2009. 2009. I took my oldest daughter, Taylor, and we went down to the women's basketball Final Four in St. Louis. And when I was there, I was invited by a woman named Nancy Elkhorn, who founded Mercy Ministries, a ministry that runs quite a bit in the South and in Canada and New Zealand and Australia. But she invited a number of us coaches who I knew through the Fellowship of Christian Athletes to go to Mercy Ministries' home in St. Louis. And so we all gathered together at the convention and left and went to visit Mercy, and had a tour and worshiped with the women that were there, and also sat down and ate lunch with them. And when we sat down, it was me and my daughter, and then a woman on either side of us. And they were both from Minnesota, where I was from. And I said, "What in the world are you doing all the way down here?" And they said, "There's nothing like this in Minnesota, so we had to come all the way down here." And that was the moment where I feel like the Lord said, "This is what I'm calling you to." So after that, and we did worship with the women. We did everything in that facility, but we went back to the hotel room, and I honestly couldn't concentrate on anything having to do with basketball the rest of the weekend. That just kept playing in my mind, and I'm kind of a visionary anyway, and began to think about how something like that could happen. And then kind of confirmation for that, my daughter and I were driving home, the 10 hours home from St. Louis, and just out of the blue she said, "Mom, I bet you'd love to do something like that, wouldn't you?" And my comment was, "Yes, I would love to do that." So that's kind of where the calling came from. I returned home, back home, and immediately, when I think I probably had texted you many times in between, though. Yep. Showed up at Connie's house, and she had gone back to school to get her master's degree at the age of 50. Was how far into your counseling?
I was a year and a half into a 3.5-year program. Yeah. And you showed up at my doorstep and said, "I know why I'm retiring, and you're in school." And at that point, I remembered thinking, "Oh, but wait, no, I got school, 3.5-year program. I've got a year of interning." And I was like, "Oh," but at the same time, there was this, okay, I didn't know why I went back to school. Tammy made me go back because I'm a professional wallpaperer, and we got to know each other. And she really encouraged me to go back to school. And so because of your encouragement, I'm in school, which of course down the road, as God was leading us to this ministry, I needed to have my master's in counseling, but there was no awareness of any of it at that point. And so I just pursued schooling, and a cool little piece that happened in 2006 was Tammy's son and my daughter went to prom together. And that's where we really met. And we're very, very different. Tammy is the visionary, the athlete. I'm the artist, kind of sits in the middle. I'm not a visionary. I live as a counselor in the middle. And it was prom that the Lord used to get us on this track of meeting, developing a friendship. And then he brought the pieces to us, you going to St. Louis and I'm in school, and then one thing continued to build. Tammy had a good idea to write to Mercy Ministries and say, hey, you want to start a home up here? And we'll run it. And so they came back with, no, we're plenty busy in the South and the other places, but for $100, we'll send you what you need to know how to get something going. And so we pitched in $50 each, and then here in the mail came the manila envelope with, here's what you need to do. But on the very top, there was a note that said, do nothing but pray for 1 year. You need to know if God is calling you to start something or to join something. So we put it all away, and we did pray for a year. And in that year, we started out thinking, the Lord's just going to show us yes or no, go or not. But what he really made clear pretty quickly was that we needed to work on our stuff, our heart things, the things that we needed to grow in. I could say, it's just how I do it. Who cares? No, God cares. I needed to address that. And so we helped each other with which was pretty big mountains at the beginning. And during that time, when we chose to pray for that year, we asked a pastor and 2 women friends to pray as well. And we didn't share it with anyone else. Our husbands knew, and they were praying, we were praying and growing. And then at some point, probably in the last part of that year, we were just really being led on how to function this ministry, whatever it is. There was no name. There was no concept other than Mercy Ministries. They served teens into their mid-20s at that point. So that's what we were thinking. We would have teenagers. And
So from a standpoint of operation, kind of there are the blessings that came through that year of prayer. Like Connie said, just identifying in our own hearts, part of our prayer was, Lord, show us whatever we need to address if we're going to serve women. And so he was very faithful. You ask for that, he shows you, and it's always much more than you thought. But an opportunity for us to address those issues. But the other blessing that we received during that time was just very clear ideas of how we're supposed to operate. And so the way we operate as Whispers of Hope is very unique, and it's the way that we've been called to operate. It's not the way every ministry is called to operate, but the way we're led. So the first thing is that we don't ask for money. We don't run fundraisers. We don't do any of that. Our fundraising strategy is prayer. And if you're familiar with George Mueller, he was very instrumental. After that point, when the Lord had revealed that, we found him to be an example of what that looked like. But that was operating principle number 1. Number 2 was that 10% of all money that came in would be tithed out to other organizations working with women. Number 3 is we would not take any government money. We didn't want the message to be controlled in any way. We wanted to be free to share the gospel. Number 4, that we would all be volunteers or self-supported in some way. So one of our staff members raises her own support and then is sent to us kind of as a domestic missionary. So that or volunteers. So all of us are in one category or the other. And then finally, that there would be no charge for anything that we do on this property as we serve women. So that was hugely significant that in that year of prayer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we were met with a little bit of, that can't work. There's no way, if you're not asking, you're going to need a lot of heavy hitting monthly supporters. And, you're a coach and you're a wallpaperer and, you're really doing the right thing in life, little bit of, And so we just, there was a conviction of, the Lord said, he led us this way and we cannot deviate from it. And so we just pursued. At the end of the year of prayer, it was very clear. start something. And the 3 people praying with us also said, start something. No red flags to not do it. So Tammy and I are looking at each other. Okay, the year of prayer is done. We're supposed to start something. Here's how we're going to function. But what do we do? So we asked a friend of ours, Larry, to show us some realty.
Before that, we gathered a group of women that knew about Whispers and that had been a little bit. They didn't really know that much, and we put together a presentation and we did it at your house.
Yeah.
So we had this group of women come in, and I don't remember how many women we had, 20 maybe, that came, and we shared the vision with them, and then we asked them to go and pray for 40 days, and then let us know if the Lord was saying anything to them, and that group all came back with, pursue it, go for it.
As well as they were heavy volunteers. How can I help?
Exactly.
In a variety of ways.
And I think the other thing for us that was really significant in this whole time was it was very clear to us that if this was going to happen, the Lord was the one that was going to make it happen. So we would remind each other, if this is going to happen, the Lord's going to make it happen. And nothing's going to stop him. But if it's not supposed to happen, nothing we're going to do is going to make it happen. And so we were able to really hold it with open hands and just trust that either it was going to happen or it wasn't going to happen. But we didn't have to worry about making it happen. So I think that was a big positive for us. So,
and what came with that is the encouragement when I'm thinking maybe, I'm overwhelmed, is it really going to work? You are at a place of, nope, we could support each other. The Lord called 2 of us. It's harder, I imagine, if there's just one person called, because when you're having a bad day, you don't have someone right there. No, we're good. And so over the years, we have flip-flopped often when one is a little whatever, the other comes in with, here we go. We can do this. And so then Larry, our good friend Larry, showed us a few places he knew. We have no money. We don't ask. We give away 10% of anything that comes in. Oh, and another thing that we believed, which has been true over the years now. Okay, what's the one thing? I'm glad. The Lord has brought everybody to us. The Lord brought us together with prom. He brought others who heard about us, came to us. And he started bringing people to us. Hey, will you come speak at our church when the word is getting out that we're doing this? And come share what you're doing. And so to this day, over all the years, we wait for the Lord to bring in his perfect timing. We don't make something happen and go when we can trust the Lord that he'll bring it. So we told Larry we don't have money, but we need to find a place. And so we knew we were country is what we wanted. And so Larry showed us a few places around town and
out in the country.
Out in the country, and we ended up at a little farm. It was a bit of a new age approach farm, but it had these outbuildings. And we left there thinking it'd be great to be in the country, somewhere that has a barn with character. So that was in our head. And then, Tammy, you were in town and a woman ran into you. What are you doing? Tell me about it. What are you looking for? And you said, we're looking for a farm that has a barn with character. And she said, Joanne, you have to talk with Joanne.
So funny story there. So I called Joanne. I got her number, called Joanne, and we set up to meet like 3 days later. But Connie's a counselor, and her curiosity is like, she's very curious.
I'm very snoopy. Yeah, I need to know every detail.
So we didn't wait 3 days to find the farm. We drove that day down to the farm, and I'm pretty sure we drove past the farm 10 times.
Back and forth.
Checking it out.
But you know what was right at the driveway? You look down the driveway straight ahead. this 1919 brick barn that has more character than we could have ever imagined. So it's, okay. So we met with Joanne, and Joanne, a very sweet woman, gift of hospitality. We walked in her house, and the dining room table is spread with goodies and drinks, and we sat down, and she shared her story. And her story was that she was living on this farm, had 4 children, and the other, I think, named the children is, or 4 children, and the two older kids were older and then some years off, and then there were 2 younger children. And the younger daughter, Jackie, she, well, I should back up. Joanne became a believer, and then her children were also following suit, and Jackie wanted to turn the barn into a hangout to get kids off the street and come out here and have good, clean fun. And so they got to work on that, and a couple of years went by, and then very tragically, just driving into town with her brother, they were hit by a train, and Jackie died. And the brother had non-life-threatening injuries. And Joanne said that in Jackie's death, she promised her that she'd make sure her dream lived on, that this farm would be used, get people off the streets, minister Christ. And so Joanne got a little nonprofit, had a little retreat place out here, and for 17 years tried to make it go as she thought Jackie would want, but it just wasn't coming together as she had hoped, and decided to put the farm on the market. And that was in 2008. And 2008 was the beginning of the recession. So it's a beautiful little hobby farm, 7-acre farm. Part of the barn renovation was to take the gutters and stanchions out of the lower level, which is, you hold, the stanchion holds a cow in place so they can be milked, poured a cement floor. And so the barn out here in this agricultural zone is unusable. And so it sat on the market for 2 years, and then she took it off the market. And it was just within a few weeks, I think, that you ran into the woman in town that said, you need to call Joanne. So I don't believe there was a realtor involved. Mm-hmm. And so now we're sitting, and she told us this story, and to hear this story from Mom losing her daughter, it was, wow, a very heavy conversation. Well, then we told her where the Lord is leading us, and how we just prayed for a year, and she very quickly said, and I want to work with you. You girls, I can tell, you're to carry on Jackie's dream. So we said, well, Joanne, there's something you need to know about us, and listed the principles of we don't ask for money, we're volunteers, we give away 10% of what does come in, don't take government money, it's free.
And right now, we don't have any money.
Yeah, we have no money.
Yeah.
And she said, and I'm going to work with you. And we're like, okay. So she said, come back, bring your husbands, bring friends. She was excited. We're excited as well, but we're really sitting in this place of, we don't know where this is going to go. Mm-hmm. Will it go? It was developing our trust, one situation after another over these years. And people were coming and looking, and at some point down the road a little bit, Joanne said, it'd be really great to just, find a lawyer, have a letter of intent drawn up, which says she can review it every 6 months and sign that, yep, I'm going to hold the farm until the money comes in for these 2.
Yeah, and I think the other thing with her was we said to her, because I think she was getting a little pressure from family and so forth. These 2 kooky ladies, they have no money, and who are they? Which absolutely true. But to be able to say to her, Joanne, if you want to put the farm on the market, please do, because if this is what the Lord wants for us, it won't sell. But if it's not, he's got something better for us. And we would bring that up quite often, and she would say, no, I don't want to put that, I don't want to put it on the market. And, so also during this time, we were able to now tell our story, but also tell the story of Joanne. So together, these stories were what we shared when we were asked to go speak at places, and it really touched the hearts of folks. So when it came time for the letter of intent, we had at that point $10,000 in the bank. Okay, that had come in, and so I remember asking her, Joanne, as we're writing up this letter, like, how much money would you like down in the letter of intent? And thinking, okay, well, we have to trust the Lord and be willing to give $10,000 if that's what we need to give to have the farm held. And she said to me, she looked at me and she said to me, I think $100 will be just fine. So she held this farm for $100, and just kept saying, I want this for you, I want this for me and for Jackie. And so we carried on. But after the letter of intent was signed.
Yep. We gave Joanne the $100. And then Joanne was a nurse and was retiring in 2 weeks when she was diagnosed with leukemia. And she was given 4 to 6 months to live. So at that point, Tammy and I found ourselves in what could be called a predicament. What are we going to do? Joanne needs to get her estate and everything in order. Diagnosis of 4 to 6 months. She may have shorter time. We don't know. It was all unknown. And, there's the natural flesh response. Well, we need to take control and we need to get this done for her because the last thing she needs is added stress in her life. With such a big thing as her whole financial everything. And this farm was a big piece of that. And so we prayed, and it was very clear, you don't ask. Are you going to trust me? And so we did meet with Joanne and shared that. And her response was, yeah, and that's why you two are going to carry on Jackie's dream. It just, I think, spoke. She could hear it and say, yep, that's right. You don't ask. And so we had her approval that was okay to just let it be. And it was another very crazy thing to people, which it was. We're just going to wait and sit around. So during this time, people continue to reach out to us. Will you come and share with our church or our women's group, what this is that you're doing? Joanne was in the hospital during all this time, and the months are going by. Pretty soon, a whole year has gone by. She's still with us, and now we're in the second year, and it's August of 2013, and we're thinking, okay, we need to go and talk to the bank, just see where we're at with everything financially. So Tammy, why don't you share that story?
Yeah, so we met with 2 bankers, one banker that was more local, and just had a little more of a business approach to it. And then we had set up on that same day an appointment with a bank president who's a believer. And the first meeting, we went in, and at this point our financials are pretty simple. This is how much money we have in the bank, and we went in, and we laugh about it now. We were in this office and with an elderly bank president who came in with his young executive, and we were at one end of a very, very long conference table, and they were at the other end. And the first question out of the bank president's mouth was, how many stockholders do you have? And I just remember Connie under her breath saying, what is that? And me saying, we don't have any. And so we basically, I'm sure we looked like elementary school students to him in terms of our understanding and awareness of financial stuff. So they kind of laughed us out of the meeting, and we went back into the parking lot, and Connie was kind of choked up and in tears, and I just started laughing, and she said, "How in the world can you be laughing?" And I said, do you remember the movie It's a Wonderful Life? And she said, yeah. I said, that's the banker from It's a Wonderful Life.
Mr. Potter.
Mr. Potter. So we laughed about that. And part of that was we knew we had another meeting in the afternoon. So we went to see the bank president in the afternoon, and he had us in and he asked us to tell him the whole story. So we told him the entire story. And when we were done, he said, we would love to work with you. Let's look at your financials. He didn't laugh at the fact that we handed him 2 pieces of paper. He looked at everything and he said, well, based on what I can see here, I can tell you you're, about $10,000 short of a down payment. And so whenever you get that $10,000, you give me a call back and we'll go to work on this because we would love to work with you. And so we went out into the parking lot, and it was a very warm day in August, and sat in my car, which had kind of become the office for us as we, traveled around and whatever. And we prayed, Lord, if it's your will, and we need $10,000 to be able to close on this. Joanne is sick, and so we prayed and let it go. And then the next day, I received a call from a couple who said, the Lord told us we're supposed to give you $10,000. And 3 weeks later, we closed on the property, and it was ours. Mm-hmm. And there are many, many miracle stories in the story of Whispers of Hope, but that one was huge. And part of it we found out later from businessmen that there actually really was no possible way we should have gotten that loan. We didn't have anywhere near what we needed for them.
And what this realtor had told me was, you can have a president that says we want to work with you, but it has to go through the loan committee. And because we pray for the mortgage to come in every month, we were just a risk that should have been thrown out immediately, but it went through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And at the time, I think we had 12 monthly donors. And remember, we had been told countless times, you need 200, 400 monthly donors. We had 12 when it was approved.
Yeah. So we are then assigned our loan officer. So we go down the hallway into his office and pulling up the pictures and so forth of the farm, the realty side of it. And he has this zone of agricultural real estate. And he's looking at it, and all of a sudden it's Joanne. He had his wedding in the barn. He's a believer. The little favors for the guests to take home, John 3:16. And so his heart is just warmed. Oh, how's Joanne? And there was just this immediate connection with this man. And if I remember correctly, he gave us the lowest interest rate.
Yes, the lowest interest rate. Mm-hmm. And then they told us that what they were going to do is only charge us the interest for the first year, so that we could make sure that we had, everything in order and had an opportunity for more money to come in, because now we've pretty much wiped out our savings. That, again, they went beyond, above and beyond what they needed to do.
We don't have to pay a mortgage for a whole year, just the interest. Mm-hmm. So these miracles are starting to happen, and you see how the Lord orchestrates under the surface. And that's a thing we've learned, and it's a piece I use in counseling all the time. We see these certain things, but every certain thing is connected to hundreds, if not thousands, of interactions with others, and God is working in their lives, and his timing is always never early, never late, right when it's ready to happen. So then Joanne had every fall a big harvest party out here. And it would be a day of horses with the old-fashioned wagons where there's 2 driveways circling through the woods giving rides, music, food, crafts. So we thought, let's just do another day to really honor Joanne. And she was now living with her daughter next door and out of the hospital finally. It's 1.5 years after her diagnosis. And so there was 1 day available. It was going to be October 26th of 2013, Sunday afternoon, open house from 1 to 4, where Joanne could invite all her friends and family, and we could invite all the people now that are hearing about Whispers and want to get down here and see it. And then we thought Joanne had a little dream, a ribbon cutting ceremony from Jackie's dream safely into the hands of Whispers of Hope. And so at 2:00 there was a ribbon cutting ceremony. And that day before we're setting up, it was around 40 degrees, freezing. And, somebody did say, this is God's party. We'll see what he's going to do with tomorrow. So it was about 65 the next day, bright blue October sky with orange leaves. And over 300 people came. What we also had was a clipboard in the main house, shed that was going to become the counseling center, of items needed. And so at the end of that day, people are saying, oh, I have a dresser we could donate, or I own a glass company, well, I'll put a mirror in every bedroom. It was wonderful. At 4:00, we had a praise and worship service up in the haymow. Joanne was in a wheelchair. Guys picked up her wheelchair, carried her up, and we praised the Lord.
And we had asked her for all her favorite songs, and that's what we sang.
Yeah.
I just remember sitting there, and she was in a wheelchair, but to see her hands raised and just worshiping.
Yeah.
There were a lot of tears. And then afterwards, carrying her back downstairs and share what she said to you.
The sun was setting and people had gone home and were cleaning up, and Joanne and I were down in front of the barn, and she just reached over, grabbed my hand. We did it. I can now face Jackie. I didn't fail her. And she was like, that's coming from something in the past. She knew, Jackie wouldn't be upset if it didn't happen. But it gave Joanne such peace to know it's done. And the Lord, there were so many things sitting there. We don't have the money. Joanne is given this little window to live. The Lord let her live for over 2 years instead of 4 to 6 months. And it spoke to a lot of people, because there was some, I think, frustration that we weren't picking up the phone. We got to sell this farm, everybody. This woman needs to settle her financial world. But, and Joanne, one time when she was in the hospital, many months after her diagnosis, she said, those Minnesota Vikings and the Minnesota Twins, they're really wealthy guys. I think if you just sit down and share what we're doing, they could just pull out their checkbook and write a check. And I was like, remember, yeah, I'm sure they do. Yeah, they are wealthy guys. They'd probably be willing, many of them. However, remember, we don't ask. Oh, you girls, that's right. Even in this deathbed place that she finds herself, I am still learning. Mm-hmm. The Lord is still growing me. Keep trusting him. Mm-hmm. And so the Lord used the ministry, I think, to speak to a number of people that, when the culture says that can't work, but God has led you another way, just keep trusting him. And in all these situations, our trust has grown. We've kind of how I define it is, when something comes up, we pray and we drop it. Meaning, okay, Lord, we're going to trust you, but the flesh tendency is, okay, I did that, but now let's make it happen. Take control, get a plan, make it happen. And so to drop it just means we don't carry it into now people. Mm-hmm. We are going to trust the Lord with it. And we pray our hearts out.
And we're
Yeah.
willing to work very, very hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do work hard, but
Yeah.
he's the one that's going to decide whether it comes to fruition or not.
Right. Yeah.
Just one other thing about Joanne that I think one of the things in her, in spending her last days with her and visiting with her, was just trying to share with her what a legacy she left. And at first I don't think she saw it, but just without her faithfulness, without her following God's lead, without her trusting God, this would not have happened. And I think that's really, really important. And that's how we think of her, as a vital partner in this ministry and a legacy for what's to come. And we named the house Joanne's House. There's a sign from the old chicken coop that Connie made that says Joanne's House, and you even presented those to her right before the open house. And there's a sign that says Joanne's House and a sign that says Jackie's Loft, because Jackie loved the barn loft. And you presented those to her, and she cried. I mean, we just said, this is forever.
Yeah.
And as long as we have this property, this is what the house and the loft will be known as.
Yeah, and we will not forget Jackie or you, Joanne, which can be just kind of the heart piece of don't forget my loved one who is no longer here. And so when you walk up in the barn to the haymow, yep, there's Jackie's loft. So that was just a very foundational piece of before we got on the property. And we closed on this house September 26th of 2013. Then we had the open house on October 26th. And we decided we're not going to do any renovating until Joanne is home with the Lord. This farm was her heart, and she was living with her daughter right next door, and she didn't need to see or hear being, renovated. So we just decided to not do anything. There's plenty to do now. We need to find an executive board, which tell about.
Well, we were told early on you need to have a board, and so we prayed about it, and we went searching for people to be on our board, and every single person turned us down. And so we said, okay, I guess it's just us and our accountant that will be the board for a while.
Yeah. And they turned us down because the whole thing is just like too ridiculous. You don't ask, I don't know if I want to be a part of this. Yeah.
And so in the long run, it was actually, it worked to our benefit, because in talking to folks that run nonprofits, there can be a lot of tension between the board and the operating folks. And some of that is because, especially starting out as a new nonprofit, you think you know who you are, but the Lord, like in our case, the Lord led us. He led us from young teens to older women. We realized over time that the women that were coming, the women that we had opened to in a very specific program that we had, similar to Mercy Ministries, these young women or girls were not nearly interested as much in change as in pointing a finger at somebody else. And we realized, kind of hitting it in a nutshell, that if you want change, the only change that comes is if you want change, if you desire it for yourselves. And so just over time, being able to see how the Lord changed us from starting with that to now what we do could have been very frustrating for an executive board.
We're changing who we originally said we were.
Not our mission overall, but specifically, groups, the kind of age groups. And then over time, we started to feel that the Lord was leading us to try again, get an executive board. And so we spent a year in prayer, praying for the executive board. And then when I went out and talked to people, every single person said yes. And every single person we talked to had experienced Whispers of Hope at that point, which they knew what we were and how we were operating, and they saw all of that. And we still operate with them, and that's a huge part of it.
And another piece that comes with that, none of us that the Lord called to get this going, meaning Tammy, she's a basketball coach. I'm an interior designer, wallpaperer. Suzanne, who has been here from when we opened, was a transit bus driver in the Twin Cities. None of us had ever done this before. So none of us came in with, hey, here's how we're going to run it. I've done this, for years, and it's going to look like this. So the Lord really brought 3 people, especially, that we were very moldable into what He was doing. And when we opened, the day we opened, 7 14 to 21-year-olds arrived for 5 months. And we were working, and I'll go back to that, the work that happened to get this up and running. But the teens, just as Tammy mentioned, Whispers of Hope is really for women who are saying, you know what, I've tried everything, including blaming others. I need to deal with my heart. And what we're seeing is that's kind of more in your later 20s, early 30s, when you're really at that point. And so because we just hadn't ever experienced this, the Lord brought teens to show us that's not who you are, a rule out. And then down the road, there were 2 women that came who were in sex trafficking. And we were told we'd be fine to support them, but after experiencing them, specifically one who was here 5 months, that's not who we are either. And we came away seeing, the best house manager for the trafficked women are those who were in it and now find freedom in Christ. Because to survive that world where all of your own thinking is taken away so that you don't think, I'm going to leave, you're right there. There's a deep manipulation to survive. And so then that came here, and we were unprepared for that.
And untrained. For
right, not at all
of
trained.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so it was just, again, the 2 categories were not for young teens or trafficked women. But we had to experience it to know that's not who we are. Mm-hmm. But back to after the open house, at late October, we were invited to a church, and we were asked to sit on a couple stools. It's a church that was meeting at a high school at that time, and just share with the congregation what you're doing. So we know this pastor and his wife quite well, and so we went. That was a Sunday morning. So he asked us a few questions for about 10 minutes, and we're getting off our stools. Oh, no, wait. And here his wife comes out carrying a big, what looks like a Publishers Clearinghouse check for $5,000. Oh, wow, thank you, wow. Oh, but that's not all. We're going to support you monthly. And then, oh, that's not all. Actually, we haven't been real honest. We had a video clip that we had on our website, just a little thing of here's our dream to start this ministry. He said, for the last few Sundays, we've been looking at this. They know about you. We just wanted to surprise you. So when you leave here today, your table out in the little lobby, there are a bunch of contractors, subcontractors, tradesmen that want to help. Whenever you buy this or get this farm and start working on it, they're going to help get it done. And so we stayed quite a time afterward meeting with these guys, a long list of every one of the trades that would be needed to get the job done. And then there was also a group in the Twin Cities, a church group, retired guys, 62 to 82, heard about us. And when it was time to start working, they came back and forth for about 6 months to get a farm shed converted into the counseling center, the kitchen, and over time, the chicken coop and the horse run-ins. And so it is now December of 2013. And we are thinking, okay, well, let's get graph paper of the counseling center and let's draw it, and then our husbands can just throw up walls and put it in a bathroom. Because it was just an empty shed when we purchased it. It was empty. Yeah, so we're thinking our husbands can do this work because they're both handy guys. And so Tammy we drew it out, and then you have a friend at Carleton,
Yeah.
project manager.
Yeah, project manager. And I just called him and said, hey, would you sit down with us and help us? We have the plans all figured out to scale on graph paper. We just need to know materials-wise what we need. And so he said, sure. And we started talking to him, and he said, I think you're going to have to call the county, because you're changing the usage. It's an agricultural building. You're now making it a commercial building, that in terms of how it's zoned. So I said, okay. And then on December 27th, your anniversary, that's how we remember
the
it.
date.
So I called the county, and they said, yep, you need an architect, you need an HVAC engineer. And I said, okay. So I called Connie and I said, do you know an architect?
Blueprints.
We just, neither one of us knew.
Our little graph paper wasn't going to pass.
So we said, okay, well, we need to pray. And so I called this friend, project manager friend, John, and I said, hey, this is what we found out. I said, we just need to be praying. And he said, yeah, that's great. I'll be praying and I'll spread the word. And so I was December 27th, and on January 1st, I was sitting in a chair watching the Rose Bowl parade with my laptop in my lap, and up popped an email from a guy I'd never heard of before. His name was Craig, and I opened the email from him, and it said, Tammy, I heard what you're doing. I've read your whole website. I don't know what it's like to be a woman in this culture today. I don't have any daughters. I don't even know why I'm saying this, but we're going to do all your work, all your architectural work pro bono.
And he's going to take it to his designers.
Yes. So then he took it on as a project, and it's a very high-end architectural firm. He called in his architects, asked who wanted to work on it. They actually had more people than they needed. Then he talked to his designers, and they talked to their suppliers. And so they ended up doing all the architectural work in the counseling shed, brought in, imported Italian tile, paint, carpet squares, everything.
Artwork.
Yeah, everything. And they ended up also doing our kitchen in Joanne's house. So just an amazing group that I found myself thanking him all the time, and he would say to me, Tammy, don't thank me, don't thank us. This has changed our firm. To be able to serve in this way has absolutely changed our firm, and from here on out, we're always going to have a project that we're working on. So they did an incredible amount of work for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Tammy got that email January 1st of 2014 in the morning, and then in the afternoon we got word that Joanne had passed on to glory. And you look at the timing. We had said we're not going to do any work until Joanne is gone. Mm-hmm. So what does the Lord do? Again, he's never early, he's never late. He brings the architect the day that he's taking Joanne home, mm-hmm. because now we need an architect. Mm-hmm. And really the grace of God to let the architect group emails show up in the morning, because then you called me and it was so exciting and wow. Mm-hmm. And then later to get word. Joanne was like a mother to us. And so we got to be all excited in the morning, but then get the word on Joanne, which, was heartfelt. If it had been the other way around, Joanne passed away and now gets this exciting news. But see, God knows us. Mm-hmm. He's in the details of everything. And so we took a couple weeks with the family and just, Joanne's beautiful service and all that. And then Tammy and I were standing in the kitchen of the main house. And, when should we open? How about in July? We got to convert this whole house and the shed to meet Department of Health regulations. Should be enough time. Well, then all these guys, these trades guys, showed up. And a church, also men came on a Saturday, women cleaned and, but an interesting thing is the walls had 6 to 7 layers of wallpaper. The barn was built in 1919 and the house 1920. And so there's like, oh, I had my undergrad in psychology, but then got married and developed this little business, the wallpapering business. And so, oh, that's why I learned. That's why I have 2 steamers to get rid of wallpaper. So we got people helping, and the work is going on.
And I think in the spring, we knew at the time of the purchase of the house that the septic system wasn't going to be functional. And 2 years prior to us actually buying the farm, a gentleman had called me on a Sunday afternoon, and he said, "Hey, I heard what you're doing from another gentleman." And I actually didn't know either of these gentlemen. But he said, "Could you come and show my wife and I what you're doing?" And so we went over and met with this gentleman and told him the whole story. And when we got done, he said to us, "So I run a septic business. And just so you know, if you ever need help down the road with the septic system, you call me." So, of course, we purchased the farm. We start the work, and I call him and say, "Guess what? We purchased the farm. We need to replace the system and everything." And he worked with us. He said, "Okay, we're going to get this done." And from day one, I would say to him, "Tom, I have no idea how we're going to pay for this." And he would say to me, "We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out."
Man.
Yeah, Christian man. We'll figure it out. And so he was able to get tanks and pods, because it's not the traditional septic system. It's a peat moss pod filter system, which lasts, it'll last 60 years, so well beyond when we're here. But he did all the work to bring in. One of my favorite goofy stories is they were bringing in these giant concrete septic tanks, and they had it on a crane, and it was over the hole, and on the side is stamped "Property of Whispers of Hope." And it was that moment where I was like, this is really cool. This is really cool. But he got it in, and the whole system was in and running. So when we opened in July, we had it, but we hadn't paid for it yet.
And didn't he put 2 tanks in case we grow someday?
Yeah, pretty much everybody, the contractors, everybody, they did more than they needed to do. And they kept saying to us, "Hey, we're going to do top of the line so the county sees the quality of work, but we're also going to give you room for expansion." And so that was what he had done. And so we're open. It gets to be the fall after we opened, and Tom finally calls me and says, "Tammy, I'm ready to settle up." And I'm thinking, great. Well, we'll settle up.
So Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was Thanksgiving. And so I met with him, and this entire project, the septic project, which now had to pull in 3 different buildings, and it was a massive project, should have been well over $60,000. And he showed me all his figures and all the things he had gotten donated. So he said, "Well, here's the bottom line, $21,000 is what we need to settle up." And he said, "Well, it's Thanksgiving and the end of the year." And when he said $21,000, I said, "Well, I'm not quite sure how we're going to pay for it." And then he said, "So it would be great if we could settle up by the end of the year." And I'm thinking to myself, that would be really great. If
4
we
weeks.
Settle up.
We just bought this house.
Yep. And so we left it at that and left. And within a couple weeks, a check showed up for $21,000. And I was able to go and see him and pay him with a check for $21,000.
And he was pretty surprised.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And we came to find out after all of his work through the county that he was the top septic guy in the upper Midwest. And it was just that, stamp of confirmation. The Lord had this figured out. And he didn't just bring us anybody. He brought us the best, because the project was really complicated. So all of that construction and all of that, we entered into.
Yeah. And so we opened July 13th of 2014. And we were working in the house like 12, 15-hour days, getting this wallpaper, just doing everything that needed to be done for Department of Health approval. And it was in May, maybe mid-May, and somebody said, "So who are the girls coming? Are they all lined up?" And because it's a counseling ministry and I'm the counselor, questions came my way. And I don't know, we're just physically working here. And so I said, "Well, I don't know." And there were 3 nights I'd get home exhausted. And I'd get in bed, but I always like to land on some scripture. And I'd open the first night, Noah's Ark. And I'd fall asleep. The second night I opened right up, and my Bible doesn't just naturally open to Noah's Ark where Noah's standing in the doorway. The third night it happened, I made myself stand up and read. And it hit me, you build it and I'll bring them. God brought all the animals to the ark. Okay, he's going to bring the girls just like he's brought everything else. We don't have to go look. And we've never marketed ourselves or advertised.
Partly because we knew that the need would be overwhelming, and the learning curve was steep, and also the fact that we're staffed by all volunteers. We knew that we just put it in the Lord's hands, and He'll bring them.
Yep. And so now it's June. We're opening in mid-July. Nobody's called, and then in a week's time, I can't remember exactly, but about 4 or 5 calls. The first call I got, "Hey, I just heard about you. Do you still have a bed open? Can I get in?" "Oh yeah, we do, sure." But then I had to create an application. I'd never done this. What's an application? And it's got to be pretty extensive.
Partly because we're not licensed as a treatment facility. We're very specific in how we're licensed, and it took us over a year of going to all the different agencies in the state of Minnesota and having them say, "Well, we don't know who you are or what you are. We don't even know how you should be licensed." But we knew where we didn't fit again, and persistent mental illness, we couldn't do that. Suicide. Active suicide, we couldn't do that. So we had real specific things that we could do, and clear guidelines. So you shared those guidelines; they were there. But some of the women who showed up on the property, they're daughters of parents who weren't in full disclosure of the challenges.
The daughter might have needed treatment. When we were getting our license through the Department of Health. The women came back after, like Pam, you just described, this back and forth, that we don't fit any of the over 28,000 places of mental health support in the state of Minnesota. A big one is we don't take government money. We're not getting a paycheck. So all the documenting, medically, psychologically speaking, at the end of the day, that's a lot of your checks and balance to get your paycheck. You are working. And we're volunteers, so take that off the table, and no government money, and I remember one of them. So you're going to have teenagers on a farm with no cell phones, no computers, and no TV, and you're just praying for your mortgage to come in every month. So they came back. You're a board and lodge, like a camp, and programming can be your counseling. And the best news I heard as a counselor, you have no state oversight over your counseling. There's no checks and balance. The only thing is you'll have a surprise inspection once every 18 months in the kitchen, Department of Health rules. And so for me, it's like, wow, I get to just work these women, they come and go. So going back to that opening, all of a sudden we are zoned to sleep 10 women in the house. And we thought, well, okay, 7 would be fine. There were 2 staff people living in the house. I would come back and forth pretty much daily at that point, Monday through Friday. And within a little window of time, here we had every bed, 7 women, young women coming. And we had a little tiny list of rules. Now you picture 7 14 to 21-year-olds moving in who are struggling out there in life. We did hear from a few parents, you fix her. I'm not picking her up till you fix her. It's like, well, okay, we'll see how that works. But there we had a schedule. Out of bed at 7:30 in the morning. Then you're in the workout room at 8 o'clock. and then you are going to clean up your room before the morning meeting. Oh, another kind of crazy thing we did, we had been advised, take all the bedroom doors off and the closet doors off, because then you'll never have a slam door and you will never be accused of something inappropriate that happened behind a closed door, whether resident to resident or staff to resident. You just eliminate all that. And so there again, another thing. And there were the residents all knew the rules before coming. They had to sign the contract. This is how the day plays out. And an interesting thing, within a few weeks, they all loved no cell phones, no computers. Kind of probably wish there was a TV on, but in this generation, they had all grown up with cell phones in their hand, at birth. And so they didn't know what it was to be free of that. And the other thing was they loved not having doors. They never felt cut off from the others. If someone had to get up in the night and go knock on a staff person's door for whatever reason, they weren't waking up people. And so it was surprising. These youngins really liked these rules. And then we started the day at 9 o'clock in the living room with a morning meeting, worship, prayer. Here's how the day is going to play out. They had to go outside. They had chores, and being we're on a farm, there's animal chores, lots of grounds chores. And then everybody was in the kitchen at 11:30, lunch prep, whether you're eating or not. And dining room experience was conversations, this thing that is lost now. And with no electronics, it really helped. And they all had to pitch in. And of course, there's those that are sitting on the chair letting everybody else do the work, but no. And then at noon lunch, and then everybody's cleaning up. And then it was study time in the afternoon, counseling time. If you had appointments, that's where you could schedule those. And then a little free time in the afternoon, then back in the kitchen for dinner prep. Have dinner together. 6:30 when the kitchen is clean, you're good to go, do what you want on the property. You don't get to leave until lights out at 10:30. And so for some of them, this was a huge shift. One gal had never once, 16 years old, she had never sat at a dining room table. It was the junk collector in her home. And dinner was, here's a bag of McDonald's, go in your room and shut the door and watch TV. So, wow, real deep transitions. But it was all whispers of hope. Our big thing is life skills and relationships. And for those coming out of treatment, again, we're not a treatment facility, but for those that came post-treatment, they're in a place well enough to function. If they don't get on top of life skills and relationships, when they go back in the environment, they're just going to keep circling through treatment. And so that's really who we are, is the support of a lot of relationships. And then I did have to send home a few gals because they needed treatment. And we landed with these 4 for 5 months. And at the end of the 5 months, we decided 18 and above. And ever since then, that was at the end of 2014, and now it's 2023. And we have had very few call that are teenagers. I don't know that any teens. We had a couple gals that were 18, 19, 20, but they were here to work on their heart. They were dedicated. They had hit that place at a young age. This is my opportunity. And we have had women live here a year and a half. And the nice thing for them, there's no financial responsibility to be here. So they really could lay that heavy burden down and work on their heart issues. And we see how the Lord, He knew everybody He was going to be sending, what they needed, and financial. Even when we've had groups come, the barn has been used for a few events over the years, even though it's sitting as a barn to renovate rustically down the road. But women, church retreats that couldn't afford maybe going to a retreat place and too embarrassed to take a scholarship, so I'm busy, I can't make it. But this eliminates all of that it's free. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing that's happened, a lot of donations, because it's free. We might even come out ahead at times if we would have charged something. And so the Lord, over the years, we had full-time residents. The last resident left August of 2019. And then it's like, oh, the Lord, the phone really hasn't rung much at all for residential living ever since then. To date, we've had over 5,000 women and some men reach out on behalf of their daughter or wife, looking for help.
Yeah, we're just at the point now where our focus, and we feel like this is where the Lord's led us, is short term. That's what women want. They can't leave their children. They can't leave their jobs. They want to come down for more of a retreat-like experience for a couple days, or for intensive counseling, one-day intensive counseling that's offered. So, the Lord has taken us on the journey, and just as we started, we've held it with open hands and trusted that the Lord is leading where we're supposed to be, and that's how we approach it. And there's freedom in that. There's no stress in that. In fact, if we start to get stressed about things, we remind each other. Usually, stress comes from wanting to control, and I think about what Whispers of Hope would look like if I had controlled it, or you had controlled it, and I look at where we are now because we've just held it with open hands, and the Lord has led every piece of it. It never in a million years did I think it would look like it looks, but it's so much better than I ever thought it would be because He's led it. Funny story with that is we tried every name you could imagine, and they all sounded like either a cemetery or a nursing home.
Yeah, it's in my journal.
Yeah.
The list of names we were coming up with.
The names that we came up with, and we would just laugh. And then one day I was going up to help with a class that Connie was in. She needed to bring a guest speaker in, and I ended up going up to help with this. And so I'm following her up to her class in my car. So we're driving separately, and it was downtown Minneapolis heading to the St. Mary's campus. And all of a sudden, out of the blue comes Whispers of Hope. But we still have about 10 minutes of drive time, and I'm so sure I'm going to forget it. So all I did the whole last 10 minutes, Whispers of Hope, Whispers of Hope, Whispers, so I wouldn't forget it. And we got to the parking lot, and she opened her door, and I opened my door, and I just yelled it at her. And she's like, what? So Whispers of Hope, that's the name. And
there it is.
That's where it came from.
There it is. Yeah.
God will provide.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Honestly, some of these, oh my word. Yeah, it just wouldn't have been good names.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trained and wired as a basketball coach to take charge. And I think this is, in a sense, the opposite of that. If I had to say the thing that profoundly changed my life is learning to wait and to trust that the Lord has a purpose and a plan, and it's not mine. And so just learning about the sovereignty of God, learning about all of the pieces that come with that. It's one thing to read it in the Word, but to watch it happen here is just an amazing thing. And to know that, God has a plan and His plan is perfect. And to ask myself, what am I called to do? I'm reminded long obedience in the same direction. How am I today? How am I every day fulfilling the purpose that God has in my life? Being reminded that needing to take control is stressful, and it's revealing that I think somehow I have to make it happen. But the experience over the years here has shown me anyway, that all I have to do is see what God's doing and then step into it in obedience. And He's going to take care of the details. He's going to bring way more than I thought would ever happen. And I think I've been profoundly humbled over the years. That we talk about this when we stand on this property. How did we get to do this? How did we get to experience this? It's hard to put into words. It's just walking it every day, and one example after another of the Lord providing. Sometimes providing when we didn't even know we needed it. A man comes to us and says, "Hey, I have a pickup truck for you. It's in storage. You're going to need it." And I remember saying, "Why do we need a pickup truck?" And he said, "Trust me, you'll need it." And then 2 weeks later, we're driving up to the cities to pick up loads of Italian imported tile that we never would have been able to get without a pickup truck. I mean, the Lord just has that, and He goes before. And so I need to slow down, be prayerful, and be willing to wait. And then when He says go, work, right? Work hard, rest in Jesus. That rhythm, that's what I've learned over these years, and it's not how I'm naturally wired. Not at all.
Yeah. And we're very opposite. And so I live more in the gray. Counselors are in the gray because I never know what a woman is bringing to the table. I meet her for the first time and I might have a little history on her, so I think, oh, we're going to go this way. But she says one thing and we go over there forevermore and maybe come back to what I thought. That's just the nature of counseling with people's hearts, is the focus. And so I'm just more content in that middle ground. You're the driver. I can be in that. But that pushed me, because to come here and, as the counselor, I was, well, what are we going to do, Connie? What about this? This girl's doing this. We just opened. Is it okay that one of the residents wants to body pierce other gals with the things that hold a hot corn cob, those pokey things? No, and so I didn't know. I don't know, but I'm looked at as the one that should have all the answers. And so winding my way through that over the years, the Lord, regarding counseling, women come to me because they need help. Connie, tell me what to do because I'm stuck. Now, I don't know what to tell her. And the Lord is the only one that can change anybody's heart. But a lot of times women are, I'm going to come meet with you. Here's what I need help with. Tell me what to do so I can leave and be fine. Get over the hurdle. And because I didn't know, for one thing, I went back for my master's in my 50s, and then we open. I don't have a whole lifetime of experience doing this, but God called me. I'm green in it. And so the Lord became my teacher. With every woman, I've now, these intensive counseling sessions, I started when we looked at the log, the calls coming in are a lot of women. Hey, I can't move in, but I need help. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not who we are. And I always have referrals, call this place, call this number, they can help you. So we looked at that and it's like, oh, the Lord is trying to tell us, and we're not picking up on it very quickly here. About 6 months had gone by. Oh, we need to create something. So in that moment, intensive counseling, I said, well, I can meet with them a few days. We started with 3 days. But then there's a house full of residents to counsel. And at that early beginning, some women were coming to the farm weekly for a session. Way too much. But there again, the learning curve has been like this. Entered in, and It's really puts some real meat on persevere through the trials. They are for your good, because every learning curve experience has grown us deeper and deeper into who the Lord is calling us to be, and at every stage, he's calling us right there, knowing, still got some more to learn. And as we know, as long as we're on this earth, we're going to keep learning. The intensives now are 1 day. They went down to 2 day, and now for about a year, they've been 1 day. But nearly 400 women in this intensive counseling realm. I have learned something from all of them. Significant things. What'll happen? I can be talking. I use the whiteboards. I'm very visual, and women's lives show up on the whiteboards. And I'm all of a sudden describing something I've never once considered. It is the beauty, the work of the Holy Spirit, giving me what I needed. God's the one that sent this woman. He knows what she needs. He knows Connie doesn't have this figured out yet. And so it's going to work. And there's many times I call Tammy on the way home and say, this is what happened today. What God is doing.
Scripture.
Yeah. And what I always tell everybody, the Bible, cover to cover, is the best counseling manual on the face of the earth. Every condition known to man. The answer is within those pages. And so how I counsel is, the word says this, and we get a lot of different theologies coming through here. We're open not just to Christian women, but anybody searching. We're also open to the United States. We've had women fly in from all over. They're looking for biblical counseling, and there's not a whole lot of biblical counselors. And so we pop up on the screen when we don't advertise, but that's the Lord. And so where I have grown and continue to grow is, how do I help these women? And how is it centered on the Word of God? What are the stories, any story, Jesus being tempted in the wilderness. Oh, how did he battle Satan? I didn't know till I got into it. And women are like, I've got these temptations. I don't know what to do. Well, let's read that. And the 3 times Jesus is tempted by Satan, it is written. And he quotes Deuteronomy. It is written. And he quotes Deuteronomy. It is written. And he quotes Deuteronomy. Satan cannot stand up against the Word of God. That's his biggest obstacle. And so the Lord taught me that, because he brought women that were dealing with that. And then my trust, I find it falls over into my personal life, the weight, just as Tammy, the weight. We can take control, and then we're going to do all these bunny trails, and God's got a plan. We're going to get there. But it's just, let these things go. And like you said, when we're stressed and anxious, that immediately tells me, I'm not trusting God. I'm trying to take control and fix something according to what I see. And so those are the pieces. And then just God's faithfulness. He continues to bring women every single year that we've been open. We are now in our 10th year. There are more women reaching out to us than the year prior. Always an increase. And I am working now on it's a handbook, the Intensive Counseling Handbook. It started out, these women coming, do you have this in writing so I can take today with me? No, sorry. And then we need help counselors. It would be a great resource for counselors to just see the approach that the Lord has led me for Whispers of Hope, if you're going to counsel here. And so I continue to work on that when I have time. That's also a big project, as the handbook is for women that know nothing. And then it's also for the counselors that could be a seasoned 30-year therapist. How do I bring it all together so this one handbook is meeting all these different women that could benefit from it? So, but there again, one day at a time, got to trust the Lord. And he just continues to keep showing up around here when we think, okay, and then he brings the next big thing. So many of the women that come here, home is a really painful place. And so when they go into Joanne's house, she had the gift of hospitality. It was very warm, inviting. She served everybody really, really well. She was a woman that was not judgmental, just very kind, godly. And I feel that what she established there has carried on. And so when women come and many of them never served, they're taking care of their families. They may or may not have a husband or any help, working full-time, kids, and when they come, they are to be served. They leave their dirty dishes on the dining room table and our house manager cleans them up. Their rooms are beautiful. We say the Lord has given us this entire farm and our responsibility is to steward it really well, this amazing gift. And so in the house, we don't want it trashed, like our homes can get, and we finally clean whenever, it's just a big mess. We really treat every bit of this home as unto the Lord. What should it look like? So when the women come in and they just see this beautiful home and then they're served, they don't have to cook. They don't have to clean up. Many of them, no, here, let me clean up because I don't know what this is to not clean up. No, this is. And so Joanne's house has really served women well that need to be served in all ways. It's a home that there might be conversations. We're very clear that women that are coming, especially those for a quiet retreat, they just need to get away. That, hey, other women don't say, hey, why are you here and what's going on? No, you are here alone. But many times, as the Lord leads, there can be some really sweet conversations. And over the years, the women who show up around the table at any given time, the connections, sometimes it's a brand new best friend forevermore. Sometimes you were there, I was there. It's just all the time. And again, the Lord is the one with the schedule. He's bringing everybody in his time. And so the house also provides, we put the doors back on the bedrooms and go in your room and shut the door and sleep for 2 days straight. You want your food brought up to your bedroom so you don't need to interact with anybody? Just let us know and we will serve you in that way. There's a beautiful quilt ministry going on that my sister and her girlfriend started when we opened. And to date, they've made at least 180 beautiful quilts. So women, when we had residents, would come in, pick the quilt they liked, it went on their bed and went home with them. And they continue to sew and quilt. And so a lot of the women that are coming that could really feel so cared for, so blessed to take a quilt home. It's just, we have a number of groups. How can I support from afar? My sister lives in the state of Virginia and drives them here. Loads a car full of them. Other groups, how can I support this? And so Joanne's house is the hub of a lot of that going on. And so that's what I see. That house, it was already established. Joanne had it a certain way that we entered in and carried on. Her kindness to serve, her giftedness, gift of hospitality. Yeah. And women, they leave. Women, what I often tell them is, look at this place as your newest home away from home forevermore. And you need a getaway. Just call. If we have a bed, come down. And there's a woman who lives fairly close. A couple of years ago, she came and went over 30 times. It was just hard at home. She needed a place to get away to. And so the door's open. Counseling, you can come back. Women meet with me for a whole day. They leave knowing, give it 6 months, and they can come back for another session. It's a shorter session because I don't need the whole history again. or they also get phone counseling randomly with me. So it's how do we continue these relationships? It's not just they come here, never see them again. And so they go home, and that's how the word spreads. Because what the Lord is doing in all aspects here of serving them with counseling, with the animals, with the beautiful grounds, over 20 gardens out there, Joanne's house, it's meeting something they come looking for. And because God's in it, there is healing. And they go home and tell everybody they know, hey, go check out Whispers of Hope. And that's why our numbers continue to grow as they do.
Well, back in the day, Connie referred to when we looked at one particular farm and we realized outbuildings would be really significant. Originally, when we first started, we were thinking a house, and that's great. But once we had the idea of outbuildings, we realized it would be great for a woman to have a space to go work through issues and to have hard conversations, and to do that in a building that's not the building she's living in or staying in. And that's where the counseling shed has been awesome. It's there. I mean, we got it as an empty shed. It's a beautiful, beautiful facility now because of the work of many people. And that houses offices, and it houses just a staff workroom, a library until the barn is done, and then the bigger counseling room where Connie works pretty extensively with our intensives. But I think more than anything else, that building is a space to go work hard and just kind of, I don't know, pour it all out there. Mm-hmm. And then when you're done and you can catch your breath, you walk out and you shut the door, and you're able to say, okay, now, not that I've put it past me, because they still have a lot of things that they're going to process, like in Joanne's house, but there's this separation, and they can step into the rest of the farm and see the rest of the farm very differently. Like they've maybe unburdened in the counseling shed and walked out the door, and they're not carrying that burden anymore, and they can step into the beauty and the other spaces on the farm.
Yeah. And that building also has, as you mentioned, the prayer room. And so when women are in Joanne's house, if they just want to get away, they can leave kind of the activity going on in the house and quietly go in the prayer room or the library. And we've also had calls, women just, hey, can I come use a prayer room today? Sure, especially in the cold season. Otherwise, they might call, can I come and grab a quilt and go on the back 40 out here, just find a spot on the lawn and just be quiet with the Lord. So that's a piece of that. And as far as, taking it from a farm shed to this counseling center, that was this group of retired men from the Twin Cities that came back and forth. And this is what the architect group provided the blueprints for, and all the furnishings in there, or as far as, tile and paint. There was a church closing in Minneapolis. And they said, after our year of prayer, hey, we heard about what you're doing. We're closing. Why don't you guys come up, take anything you want. You guys get first picks. And we'll take, anything left, our people will take. And so we had trucks going up to load up. So that shed is fully furnished out of that church that was closing. And so the Lord had the furniture, and a thing we experienced after our year of prayer got done in May of 2010, we didn't open, until 2014, or we didn't buy the farm until 13. During that time of prayer, people would call, hey, I've got a dining room set, do you want it? And the stuff is nice. It's not like, okay, just want to junk it, give it away somewhere. It's really nice furniture. And what we came to see, well, we haven't bought a farm yet, But the Lord was encouraging us along the way by bringing this furniture that would fill up Joanne's house and the counseling shed. So God is using people. He sees, here's a counseling shed. It needs furniture. So this church that's closing hears about us. Hey, come get it. Wow, that's cool. But that's God, you know. And so all the hands of men that were led to help, and the furniture shows up, and then God is the one bringing the women. And just as we designed it with a library and a prayer room, a big conference room, and the conference room, I started counseling in my office, but then very quickly when I started the intensive sessions, we moved to the conference room because we use Bibles, we use books, we got notebooks, I use the whiteboards. I had a woman one time, kind of an older woman, she danced around the room the entire day because she had anxiety and this just helped her. And so the counseling sessions are real work sessions. Now, if I meet with a woman for an hour or two, I'll meet in my office. More cozy, quiet, but this all-day thing, we just need space. And the guys that built, there was a man that came and put windows because we need windows in a counseling room. It just removes that trapped feeling if that's something I'm bringing in with anxiety. And so they get to look out into the pretty grounds all day long. You sit in this chair, you get to look out. And so that building has met a lot of different, it's not just counseling, it's also prayer. It's also a great quiet building if you need to talk with somebody that's private and away from the rest of the people on the farm. So that's the counseling shed.
We didn't start with animals. We started just with the property, and then began to work on the space for the animals. That was a lot of work.
Woods.
Yeah, lots of thick woods that we had to get through. So we had a couple goats that did the initial work, and now in the areas where the animals are, we had a lot of work crews that came in and cleared the area after the goats. The animals have really been significant for not every woman, but many women who have that connection with animals, and it plays out in a number of different ways. One is just getting the sense of what it means to interact with an animal, to give and to receive back. That interaction, to care for an animal means I have responsibility, and for some women that's important. Maybe they've dropped the ball in an area of their life and haven't followed through on the responsibility, but they have a chance to do it again here with an animal. So the animals are different for different people, and that's cool. Some women come and they love the donkeys, and we've had women who come because then they love chickens. So it's just their connection with the animals. And then gardens, again, we try to steward this property really, really well. And over the years, we've had different groups that have come in with ideas for gardens. There'll be memorial gardens or memorial trees, or a group that comes and says, hey, we'd love to put a pondless waterfall in for you, and right in front of the counseling shed in an area that was kind of gross, actually. So
box elder trees.
Yeah, they just cleared everything out and they put this in. Or we have the area that we call the sanctuary right behind the counseling shed. That's a fire pit that's in memory of somebody. So these gardens, these spaces are for women to just find quiet. That we want to create inviting spaces for them to go out and to pray and to meet or to read the word or to sleep, in some cases, take a nap, whatever it is. That's been a big thing of ours, is to try to create spaces for women in different places on the property. Whispers of Hope came from the fact that we wanted a space where women could come and hear that small whisper of God in their lives. And that's why when we looked for property originally, it was farm property. There aren't very many quiet spaces like that in this world anymore, where you can just get away, unplug, and hear that whisper from God. So the spaces are important. We have a lot of volunteers who come and work on those gardens, take responsibility for them because the gardens need to be weeded, and all of that. So it's a labor of love by many, many volunteers to keep the grounds the way that we have them now. And things are always changing, new areas that are being expanded and that kind of thing. But it's very, very important for us that we have this space for women to connect in that way.
Yep. And a lot of the volunteers, they're giving, but they're receiving. Mm-hmm. We get retired couples that come down. They want to be productive now that they're retired in new ways. And so it's a two-way street that I don't think I really saw at the beginning. The volunteer help was just, we just need it. And I didn't take it any deeper. But the volunteers, it's my happy place. I can't wait to get down there. And yeah, I'm helping, but boy, I'm getting so much back. And that's something, just kind of a cool thing that's happened that, I don't know that we really saw that happening at the beginning, but we understand it now. And then women kind of had their own garden. They come when it works for them. Instead of like Saturday is garden day, everybody come and half can make it. It's just on your own terms. Just come and go. And so some of these ways we do things, they've just kind of come out of very naturally by what people can do. So, yeah.
Selah House, where did...
Well, our neighbors were building sheds. And we thought, it'd be kind of nice to have a little cabin. So we had this, what is it? 16 by 20. It's just a box, a rectangle on top of the ground. And we then, the staff, we insulated. But first, we took Sharpies and covered the walls with scriptures.
Some of the women who were here helped us with that.
Yeah. Then we put in the insulation and did a lot of the work to get it done, varnished in there. But that building is called Selah House. Selah is found at the end of many psalms. Just the word Selah means to pause and reflect. And so that little cabin is a spot to pause and reflect. Again, shut out the noisy world. You are here. It's designed very specifically to have the picture window looking into the little woods. So you're really free of the goings on, people coming and going on the rest of the farm. And that Selah House was actually in memory of my parents. I furnished it. And we, again, like Tammy mentioned, we've got memorial gardens around. It's just great. We've got 7 acres and so we furnished it, and it's got a day bed out there. It has heat only, no running water, no plumbing, no electricity. So it's really for the women who love camping. It's like a Taj Mahal of all tents. You get out there, a day bed. So during the day, any woman loves being out there, but not everybody loves sleeping out there. So we have a really cute outhouse, porta potty. It looks like a hobbit house next door. And, but some like to sleep out there overnight, which is great. They can go into Joanne's house for meals or have meals brought out to them, just depending on why they're here. Some really are, I am here to be alone with the Lord. I don't want to see anybody. I'm going to choose to fast. Okay. Some are, I'm going to be out there, but boy, I need some people interaction. So I'll meet you at lunchtime, at dinner time, around the table in the house. And so it has just really had a lot of traffic in and out of it since we built that. Mm-hmm. And then one of the guys that did the counseling center, he put the porch on it. We have a screened-in porch. I've had some counseling sessions out there, especially during the COVID stretch, where women did not want to meet in a closed room, but they'd be fine sitting out there, just with the screen. And so even that, I've never thought about it till right now, but the Lord knew COVID was coming. But he's also sending a woman that needs to be here, so here's an option. Again, hundreds of things feed into any one thing, but the Lord's got it all. And then we see it, maybe, down the road. Anything else you can think of?
No, it's just a special, just place of quiet where women can be. Well, the chalet is space that we never saw coming. It's an amazing gift from God through a very generous man and his foundation. And just the backstory, we were asked by somebody who knew us pretty well, what outside of the barn, what else would be helpful for you to have? And we sat down and talked about it and talked about a bunkhouse. And when we said bunkhouse, we meant a pretty rustic bunkhouse like you'd find up in northern Minnesota, with just bunks, long, skinny building with lots of bunks.
And a bathroom would be nice.
Yeah, and a bathroom would be nice. And the purpose is where Joanne's house, we can put individuals in there and they're served there. We wanted some space where we could serve groups of women. And some of that was related to the thought of doing group intensives. We're working on that. But also we wanted to serve groups of women maybe who were serving women. That could be a nonprofit that's serving women or whoever. But just groups of women who need a space, other ministries where they're trying to find space to gather and it's just cost prohibitive or very expensive, and then that cost is handed down to the women they're serving, and so they wouldn't be able to come because they couldn't afford it. So those are the kinds of things we were looking for. So we were thinking pretty simple, and then we were invited up during COVID. We were invited up to a gathering of these men that were part of this foundation, and we were asked to bring pictures and to share what it is that we do here. So we did. We blew up a bunch of pictures, took them up there, and we all gathered in the room, and we were asked to share what it is that we do on the property. And when we got done, the gentleman who leads that foundation stood up and said, well, thank you for sharing. However, we know a lot of these things already about you, but we wanted to hear it from you. And then he said, and we know about the bunkhouse. And I just want you to know that we're going to build that bunkhouse for you, all expenses paid. And we just, both of us are not generally lacking for words, but we were pretty speechless during that time. And just as we were wrapping our brains around that, this gentleman said, and there's one more thing. And we kind of looked at each other and he said, we know that you have $180,000 left on your mortgage. And we want you to know that that is no longer an issue. And he handed me a check for $180,000. That's how this journey started. This is not a bunkhouse that you would find up north. This is a
2,500 square feet, beautiful
home. And we still don't know the words to say. In fact, after that time, I actually had to check in with one of our board members who saw a video of that presentation, because I said, I don't remember saying thank you. Did we say thank you? And she's like, you said thank you. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So this is a gift that came out of nowhere and allows us to serve groups of women. And I still don't know how to talk about it. It's just the craftsmanship of this home and the women we can serve and women we've already served here. It expands the ministry beyond anything that we saw coming, and just speaks volumes to what the Lord wants to do.
And some of the groups that we're serving are, there's ministries that need a place to go. Freedom and Forgiveness is one of them. And they're just looking and to find a place to take 10 women, $2,000 to $3,000 for a couple days, overnight. And then this as well, like everything else here, there is no cost for any women that come. And so that we had a group of 10 teens and 2 moms come. We've had sisters come. We've had girlfriends come, executive boards that need a place to get away to.
Youth ministry.
Youth, yep. And so wherever there's a group of 3 to 10, they can come here. In Joanne's house, we provide food, bedding, and towels. In this house, you bring your own food, you bring your own sheets, and your own towels. It's just, keeps the work down. After our very first little trial group of 10 teens and 2 moms, we were washing sheets for about 4 hours. I said, no, new rule, bring your own sheets. So this home, we opened to women, it was June of 2023. And we met with that group to receive the check and hear about this. It was February 25th of 2021. And so in just like a year, 2.5 years. And they very quickly after that meeting, when we heard about what they're going to do for us, the architects, the structural engineer came out here. So we stood out in the woods trying to find the right spot. They really heard us. What do you need for the women that come?
It's just an amazing gift.
Yeah. When the blueprints came back, we sent a little sketch of our idea of a bunkhouse. And a few weeks later, here come the 25 pages of blueprints with this home. And it was very overwhelming. I think even to this moment, Lord, wow, look what you do. And it's that challenge of, he's also doing it in our personal lives. But how often we're the one that stops what he's doing. We don't like his timeline. But it's always in hindsight, it was the right timeline. So this home just will continue to serve groups. And one cool thing in this house, these guys, the fireplace in the living room, they matched the brick in this house to the barn brick. They were in the details. How do we just bring it all together? Mm-hmm. And we never asked for any of it. They just, this is what we're doing, and would you like that? Yeah. Yep, so the barn, the Lord is the one that showed us, these outbuildings when we're trying to find a place and what do we even want? You want a farm that has a barn with character. So when we got here and saw this barn, built in 1919, was built by believers who did not want their friends and family to go to bars on Sundays. So they had dances up in the hayloft, depending on where you're coming from, on Sundays. Lawrence Welk played in this barn 3 times. So in the 20s, 30s, 40s, when the band leaders were, building their careers, they're traveling and playing anywhere that'll have them. And so others that came through this barn went on to become famous as well. So they built the haymow with maple flooring. So this family must have had money. Downstairs, the joists of the barn is 70 by 35 feet. And it's really fun to get contractors or anybody that knows looking up, because it's all exposed, the ceiling, and they look for the joints in the 35-foot span. Well, there are none. It's this family had shipped in from Washington State 35-foot long, thick, wide, long joists for in the ceiling to hold that floor up. And so we see the barn. The potential is huge. And share a bit about the architect right away, early on.
Yeah, so we have had an architect that has worked with us, and he's been awesome. We do have preliminary plans done for the barn. What we envision in that barn is downstairs a space for groups. Maybe it's a group that comes to stay in the chalet. Maybe it's another group, like a day retreat by a group of women, but there's kind of a art craft area, a library area, a meeting area, and then the required bathrooms and mechanical room, and then upstairs in the loft is a gathering space. So we would like to do some proactive kinds of work there. Maybe conferences for moms and daughters, managing cell phone usage, or whatever it is that would benefit women. We'd like to be proactive and be able to do some of that. But we'd also like to take that barn and do a once a month worship and coffee house, maybe with some up and coming artists. Many years after Lawrence Welk and Cat and Jammer and Whoopi John, the other folks that we've been told performed there. So it's on God's timeline. We know that. We're waiting. It's not our desire is not to make it this big commercial building. It's to leave it as rustic and barn-like as we possibly can. So that's kind of the architectural plan behind it. And, we're looking forward to what the Lord's going to do in that building. Again, we have our thoughts, but we know, we just look around and say, we know He's going to do whatever He wants to do there. All the windows have been replaced, and, so little steps have been taken. But we're waiting now for the pieces to come together as the Lord leads, and for that building to be done. And then in our minds, in our feeble minds, we think, oh, well, then we're done. Right. But who knows what's going to happen after that, and what else He wants to do. It's 7 acres. We want to steward all of it well. We want to use all of it well, and so we're waiting. We're waiting to see what He's going to do. We can't wait to see what His vision is for that barn, because we know it's going to be spectacular and much better than anything that we could come up with.
And we always thought the barn would get renovated first.
Yeah.
And the guy that created the blueprints for it has worked overtime. And then at one point, the state decided barns need, the $200,000 to $300,000 sprinkler system. It did get shot down. But before it got shot down in the state by the people that said no, he redid the blueprints to create a ramp, because then you could get away without having the sprinkler system. And then there was a stretch where it sits there, but all we needed was a structural engineer to sign off on the plan, the heating, the air.
The new HVAC engineer.
HVAC engineer. And one didn't come. And people would say, go find one. Get the yellow pages out. Find one. No, we don't jump in and make something. We wait until the Lord brings one.
And he did through this architect bring that, but the other pieces, so everything's just kind of sitting there. Yep. And it might be what we think is the most predictable thing, like everything is just sitting and waiting. And in fact, we do have some of the contractors ready to go, but it hasn't moved yet.
Yeah.
And we're okay with that. We're okay with that.
So I think we thought the barn would be first, and then this house comes. Mm-hmm. And now that we're sitting in this house, well, here the groups are here now. Now they need a space, which we had it flipped to have a space, but there's no people yet. So these things become clear with time, why they're playing out as they do. But there is that patience piece again that neither of us are patient in different ways, but we've developed that over time because you can't argue with what is happening right in front of your eyes.